Okay, so hopefully nobody has any issues with me, oops, with recording it. Present now. Cool. Okay, like I said, if I mess up, just let me know and I'll come back and start again. Okay, so what we're going to talk about is the customizing QGroundControl part 2. So we've played around with QGC, QGroundControl for quite some time. What I'm going to show tonight is this thing. Let me just run this, make sure you can see it. Okay, so this is basically a customization which we added a passcode. So we've added an extra screen, and the extra screen just allows you to set a different, whether you're different flight modes. So you enter your passcode, you have basic. So basically what we're trying to do is, these are really expensive drones a lot of the times in the QGroundControl space. So people have spent a lot of time trying to set the right parameters, make sure that everything is working correctly. So this is just showing a way of restricting access to some of the settings. And also it's just a way for me to, okay, yep, just a way for me to basically figure out how to get QML and C++ working together, because I'm not very good with that. Okay, hold on a second. Okay, so this is kind of a continuation from customizing QGroundControl part 1, which was a meetup we did in July, back in July. So the resources for that are essentially what we did is there are 3 examples in QGroundControl under the custom example, and then I recorded it. I think I recorded it after the fact because I was kind of unhappy. There's a long kind of history for what I'm trying to do tonight. I was a little bit unhappy with how everything went when I was doing a PX4 conference, and I kind of went back to try and tidy things up. So I'm still tidying things up. It takes me a while sometime, but I think it's good information. So in the custom example, basically what we do is that there are 3 things that you can do, and I just walk through each of the 3 things. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about what we did, so that there's 3 examples of first run prompts. So you get a prompt that comes up, so you take that away. There is toolbar customization, and then there's a fly view customization. I really like the way that QGroundControl is set up for customization. Essentially, the way it works is that you have a file where you tell it what QML file to remove, and then you have another file where you tell what QML file to replace it with. So to me, that's pretty cool, because that actually gives you forward compatibility. That's not 100% for sure, because there are some times when a lot happens in the file that you used to have, which you may not have taken account for in the file that you've replaced it with. But still, it's a pretty good effort for allowing you to have one core source code and also have lots of customizations for the different customers that you want. QGroundControl is used everywhere in all the Pixhawk drones that we've played around with. It's kind of like the go-to ground control system that almost everybody uses. So I think if you want to if you're trying to sell your drone and you want to differentiate it from one of the other UASs out there, I think it's a really good way, to easily change your colors, still get all the functionality that you want from QGroundControl. You can change the icons, you can put your logo in, all that sort of stuff. And essentially what you do is you obviously clean the build, and then you change custom example to custom. You make your changes. We'll talk a little bit about what files that you have to change. You run Python update qrc.py, and then you build, and this is all within the custom folder. Okay, hold on. Somebody's asking me something. Okay, I got somebody else. Okay. Hey, Andrew, how are you? Okay. You haven't missed much. All right, so this is basically the example that comes with QGroundControl. So this is the custom toolbar before. So we're just looking at the top here. We're just looking at the top. And then what we're going to do is the custom toolbar afterwards. We've just changed the top. So to make it even more obvious, we're, this is what it looks like before, and this is what it looks like afterwards. So how do we do this? So within our custom directory, what we do is we exclude the existing toolbar in the QGroundControl.qrc file. So basically we say, I want to remove this QGroundControl main toolbar.qml, and then I'm going to have my own custom main toolbar.qml, and we add the new toolbar in custom QRC. And then you have to obviously create your custom main toolbar.qml, and you place it in the custom resources folder. So we're telling everything that we're doing here is within the custom directory. So we're saying, okay, we have into resources custom main toolbar. We're just basically pointing it at that. It's a pretty basic change, just replacing one file with another file to just change the toolbar. When you're looking at this from within the Qt IDE, so this is what it looks like. So you're basically, I do most of this kind of on the command line myself, but most of our developers will use this IDE when they're trying to do stuff. So here's what the view looks like. We're in the custom folder. And then we just go into resources. That's where custom.qrc is. We may have some custom images, may have some custom widgets, and then whatever QML files we have. So the example I'm going to give is a little bit more difficult than this, but I just wanted to start with this because I don't know how many people were at the previous meetup. So it's kind of my condensed version. This is what the custom QRC file looks like. You can see at the end, we're just adding the resources. All these other things are basically what's in the custom folder already. I didn't change anything. So it just basically shows you how to change custom images. If you want to change some widgets, you can change it with this. Okay. Now editing the file. So if you've never looked at QML before, it's not XML, it's JavaScript. So basically everything is JavaScript. I just did a diff on the two files. So we have main status indicator. I just moved it outside, and that's what changed the file. So it's not actually very good JavaScript. So I moved the main status indicator to the upper right-hand corner, and then you can tinker with the logo button in the upper left-hand corner. Lots of different things. A lot of the examples that I've seen out there on the internet have a habit of just hacking the main QGroundControl folders. I would recommend just staying within the custom if you can get away with it, because it's neater. That's what it's supposed to be there for. And I think whoever came up with the idea did a really good job. So why not use it? So if when we run this, these are the commands that I showed you before: clean the build, cd custom. Now it's not custom example anymore. Run or update, and it tells you what files are excluded. You build and run, and then you get the new version. Okay, so that's my 2 cents on what we did before. So I want to talk a little bit more. Let's get into part 2. So what we're doing now is we're hiding the flight modes. You remember that's the example that we showed earlier. So QGroundControl basics. If you want to make changes, it's QML and C++ files. QML, as I said, it's JavaScript. It's not XML. So you can do all sorts of different things, like some debug statements in there. All of the code is available. Sorry, I have to let somebody else in. All of the code is available. Got the link in the slides. I'm going to put the slides up in the Meetup group, and also this recording I'm going to post that too as well on our YouTube channel, so you can see what's going on. Anybody got anything to add? I would love if somebody wants to add something. I would love if somebody's more into QML than I am and has some better examples. Hint, hint. Okay, so debug or print your text files into go into Qt Creator Console and your C++ files. You do, add your little debug information. Same with JavaScript, so console logging to the console. Okay, so we have our QML and we have our C++. So how do we get them to communicate with each other? So we're going to make sure that our properties variables that you want shared between C++ and QML have the right attributes, which in this case is QObject. So for example, the custom core plugin class that we have is this type. So you want to declare the property you want visible under QML with the prefix helper method. So QProperty, or with the prefix QInvocable if you want to call it. And then I have a whole bunch of places, resources, if you want to download the PowerPoint afterwards. Okay, so we don't want to, in the QML file, we want to define a QML module by creating a QML directory in the same folder as your QML component. Set the module name to whatever you want to call it. Import the module in which your C++ property lives. So for custom QGC, basically you just use import QGroundControl 1.0 and declare your property in the root object of your QML file. Like I said, all the code is here for what we did. So basically what we're doing is we've added one new module, which is the password page that we have. So let me just start this again and see if I can show you. So I'm basically saying, hey, I want to make sure that the person who's flying this first needs to have a password to be able to get into the different flight modes. Now you can do different things. I'd imagine that people would want to have something that they'd want to hide some parameters. So this is the page that it created. So this is our password page that created. So we have a new module for that. Okay. So here is the basic laundry list of things that we went through to create this. So we created our access types. So our access types are basic, expert, and factory. And they're in our C++ file, which is accesstype.cc. We have an access type configuration file where we set the initial access type to factory. That's why we're seeing all the flight modes at the start. Probably make way more sense to change it to basic. Create a custom core plugin to provide the set access types. We want to be able to set access type based on what password was entered. We create the passcode menu functionality with our passcode manager.cc. Then we have to tell custom.pri to include all the new files. And then we have new versions of the custom flight mode menu indicator. And then we have our new password settings.qml file, which is going to be our updates to the user interface. And then we update our custom QRC to include the new QML files. And then finally, update our QGroundControl.exclusion to exclude the old flight mode menu indicator. So if you remember, we went back, we're talking about our part one. You're basically telling it, hey, I want you to not use the flight mode menu indicator that comes with QGroundControl. I want you to use the custom flight mode menu indicator. Okay, let's have a look at the code just a little bit, because this is really for developers. So here's our access type. So we have our access type.cc. So here I've got my enums, just the three basic ones. First, here's our access type.config. We just set it to the factory so we can see all the mode types, the flight mode types. Then we want to have our custom core plugin to provide set access type functionality. So we have this method called set access type. So if it's a new access type, basic, expert, and factory, we're basically, and then we've got all kind of output statements going to it. We're just setting what the user type is. So we set user access type to whatever the password was entered. It's submit passcode. So somebody enters the passcode in the passcode manager.qml. Then we're going to basically iterate through to make sure that we're on the right access level. Then we have to tell QGroundControl using custom.pri which files to include. So we're saying we have these new sources, and these are available: access type, config, custom code, and then the passcode manager we talked about. And then we have to have the header files too as well. Okay, we need our custom flight mode menu indicator, which is the new version of the flight mode indicator, and then the password settings to update the user interface. So this is the custom flight mode. Probably could have tidied this up a bit by making these enums or something. So we have the basic, expert, factory. So as you saw when we were running through the little demo, that the flight modes are shorter for basic, as longest as possible for factory, slightly shorter for expert, and then really only down to 4 for the basic. Okay, and then probably a bit hard to see this, but essentially what we're doing here is, this is the password settings.qml. Oh God, I see I have to fix that. Somebody put in Expletive, okay. Current access type, if the access type is an access type, if it's not an access type, if it's failed. So it's just basically a if then else. And then update custom.qrc to include the new QML files. So we have flight mode indicator, and then the password settings, which is a new file, and then got to make sure that you exclude the old file. So we exclude the old flight mode indicator. Okay, and then we have hiding the flight modes. This is basically what I talked about. We ran through. So we create our access types. We create our access type configuration. Set it to factory initially. We create our very simple set access type method. Then we have our passcode manager, update the custom.pri to include all these new files. And then for user interface changes, we have our own version of a flight mode menu indicator and our password settings.qml. And then we update the custom QRC to include the new QML files, and then our QGroundControl exclusion to exclude all the flight mode menu indicators. So it's not really the difference between this and what we did in part one is we now have some C++ files going on that we didn't have going in the first place. Okay, and then essentially, as I said, here's what we do. Just run through, just show you what it looks like again. I think the best application for this, and I might try to do this the next time, is to hide parameters, because I think the parameters are probably the things that are most dangerous for a newbie user who's flying a drone. So it would probably make sense to hide those. So in the next iteration of this, we'll probably do that. Okay, changing it to basic so you get to see much less. Get the general idea. Okay, so the source code is available up on GitHub. So it's QGC component hiding. Everything's in the custom folder. So if you click on custom, it's a public repo. Feel free to create any issues if you find anything in there that you think should be changed. And if anybody wants to, collaborate on anything, such as the parameter screens, we're more than happy to play around. And we do have some interns here too as well, so you might do it as well. The resources out there are the Qt resources. So on the Qt website, so Qt is the underlying engine that we have for QGroundControl. Qt is used, it's owned by BlackBerry, and it's basically used on lots of the dashboards you see in your cars. So I think it's 50% of all cars in the US are developed using Qt. So there's lots of resources out there just to make sure that you're on the 5.12, because QGroundControl is not using the 6th version yet. And then also, if you go to GitHub Maveling QGroundControl under custom, there's some interesting stuff in there too as well about how to get the custom examples going. And also you can go back to the earlier meetup if you want to walk through with how we did the 3 of the different simple examples that come with the custom example folder. Okay, and then next month, what I'm thinking of doing is just, I'm doing a talk at it's a really large conference called Code Mash in Ohio, of all places, at the start of January. It's about 2,000 people. So I'm doing a talk about how to build your own Pixhawk drone, and another drone talk. I'm thinking that I might just do that in the next month, just basically walk through how to set up a Hexoon or NXP kit. I don't know if you guys are familiar with hover games, but there's a hover games competition, a challenge that's been going on. This is the 3rd year, I believe. So it's a great way to get cheap Pixhawk kits that you can put together. So certainly for somebody who's learning how to do this, I think it's a good way. So a lot of what we've talked about over almost the last year that we've been doing this meetup has been about software, but I think that there is a gap here in people who want to actually have the hardware to play with the software, especially the non-DJI software. There's always an open invitation if anybody wants to talk about anything, about any projects they've got, or if they want to talk about any products they have, assuming they don't spam us. I'm more interested in coding. I'm more interested if there's an SDK that you want to talk about, or if there's a project that you've worked on that you'd like to share. Okay. Anybody got any questions? Any comments? I'm going to stop the recording.
For me, all clear. Thanks.